Good morning, folks, and welcome to episode 221 of the Sticks in the Six podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Forbes, here with my co-host, Peter Barricini, and an unusual Sunday morning here on the Sticks in the Six podcast, sitting in the middle of Ontario's snow globe. We're trying to keep warm once again as we get hit with another polar vortex, but with all that fun stuff going on outside, all the fun stuff going on in the hockey world, Peter, how you doing this week, buddy?
Yeah, just basically just trying to stay warm, just trying to stay inside. Really can't do a whole lot right now. Yeah, really just looked out like just a few minutes ago and it is really bad. So yeah, if you're indoors, now is probably the best day to do it because there's Leaf hockey later on. There's the championship day for football. You got a big slate of everything. Stay indoors, stay warm, but yeah, it is kind of weird. It's been a while since we've done like Sunday episodes. And can't remember the last time we did. It was probably like one of those like emergency basis kind of things, but just like nostalgia going back to like our early days when we recorded Sunday mornings and everything like that. And now it's like an early Maple Leaf game too. It's just like what is actually going on. Today's the day is just like kind of like everything's going on kind of thing.
Yeah, it's almost like we're in the upside down world. We got a Sunday Leaf game after no Saturday night game.
Speaking of upside down, have you been caught up with Stranger Things?
I'll be honest with you. This is good. This is good. Might shock you. I haven't watched it since season 1.
Okay, fair enough.
I haven't watched it since, not because I didn't get into it, but I haven't watched it since season 1. And now my 5-year-old was asking me about the upside down world and wondering if he could watch Stranger Things. And I'm like, we'll talk about it. Now, granted,
you're gonna need a lot of parental supervision, and you need to like mute a couple things here and there.
Yeah, which I'm okay with. Granted, he also has seen every Jurassic Park and Jurassic World movie there is, and we're taking him to Jurassic Park in Universal in 2 weeks. So this kid's seen the gore. He's seen a bunch of stuff. So it's just a matter of like maybe we do it like early morning where there's not nightmares before going to bed and everything. It's on my list. It's on my list. You can see him there in the background, right there.
I was about to say he's got the Mikey hair going on right now.
He's got the Mikey hair. He's due for we're going. So I don't know if I've told you this. We're going on a cruise in 2 weeks. We're going on a Disney cruise down to the Bahamas. So
nice.
He's got a haircut lined up. My daughter's getting her first haircut. My disheveled hair is going to be all fixed up. Not the beard though. We're going with the classic beard and the straw fedora on the Bohemian cruise. So. Anyways, yeah, it's I have not caught up, but it's on my list of things that I need to do.
I was about to say, throughout the whole entire thing, you are in for surprises. I will say that.
I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, so we're living in that right now. We're living in this, whatever's happening outside. Now's the time to throw on the sweats, throw on the TV, watch some sports, enjoy your Sunday, and if you can at all avoid it, not step a foot outside.
Yeah. Unless it's the shovel, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's right. Anyways, as you mentioned, the Leafs do take on the Colorado Avalanche today at 1:30. As we saw last time the Leafs took on the Avs, it kind of turned their season back around in not so good way. They crushed the Colorado Avalanche. They crushed the Avalanche, and since then haven't looked too good. Now is a chance for them to get back in the good books and maybe give it to them again. But with that in mind, this was a big week for the Leafs. They had Marner back in town. There's a lot of discussion around what the reaction should be. There was reaction, and then of course they had their tribute to Marner's 9 years as a Maple Leaf. We want to get into that in just a sec, but before we do, I want to talk about Craig Berube and Scott Laughton, because the main part of this episode is going to be Mitch Marner. We're going to talk a lot of Mitch Marner. We've tried to steer clear of him a lot this season, but I mean, this is the one chance we get to kind of look back and discuss what's going on. Okay, so with that in mind, I want to know what your thoughts are, because Scott Laughton played, I believe it was under 10 minutes against the Vegas Golden Knights.
9:28.
A lot of frustration around his time on the ice, and there was some curiosity as to why that was the case. And in saying that, we'll touch on all this together, but Anthony Stolarz gets his first start since way, way, way back in the
Early
season,
November.
early November, and yeah, hadn't had an AHL start. What were your thoughts on the decision making around that game against Vegas?
Well, when I first heard that he was getting that AHL conditioning stint, I thought, okay, get him a game or two, let him get back into game form, let him cook a little bit in the minors to get him back up to speed with everything. And literally the day of when I saw that, oh, Stolarz is actually starting, and I'm like, don't recall ever seeing any stats, any numbers of him actually playing any games, and they just put him right into it. And to me, I think that was just an absolute mistake. And it showed early on. Granted that Stolarz didn't get help when his team is puck watching Mark Stone and leaving Jack Eichel wide open. The bad clearing attempt by John Tavares on the second goal, the list goes on. He was still very shaky. He was very rusty, and it was evident that he could have used a game or two in the minors. I don't understand the reasoning behind that when Wall and Hildeby have kind of looked really good and been steady for this team, giving them timely saves and timely wins throughout this whole entire stretch, too. That, again, the previous two games are kind of hit or miss because the Maple Leafs just weren't that great. But if you needed to, wait a day or two or a game or two so Stolarz could get back to form, it probably would have been the best move to keep Hildeby up and then rather sending him down. So to me, it was just seemed like it was very rushed. It was noticeable in Stolarz's game, and he made big saves. He got better as the game went on, but I just felt like he could have used a little bit more time.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. Like, I forget who made the comment on Twitter, but they said, like, I think it was Nick Alberga. He said, if the Leafs do make the playoffs, Dennis Hildeby should get a huge thank you for holding down the fort while everything was going on. And that, to me, says enough about why wouldn't you give either him the opportunity or Joseph Wall the opportunity to play in arguably, whether you think it is or not, it's arguably their biggest game of the year because Mitch Marner was back in town. And all eyes were on the Leafs, and all eyes were on the organization, and all eyes were on how they were going to react to this superstar coming back to the city that he so curiously left, and the way that he left. And instead, you go to a guy who hasn't played in game action since November 11th, and this is the outcome that you get is a half-hearted effort by your team and a shaky start from a guy who, deservedly so, should have probably had a couple games at some level prior to this. Even if it was like an outdoor scrimmage, like with the boys, like game action, where you're not going in and playing arguably one of the best teams in the Western Conference.
And in the big game itself, too.
And in a big game where all eyes and all the pressure is back on your shoulders. Mm-hmm. So that, to me, is peculiar. We're going to throw some big words out there today. Peculiar. And I'm not sure I understand why. And the decision making, when asked about it, Berube said, "Well, that's not my call." Whether Stolarz should have had a start at the AHL, he says that's not my call. And to me,
it really should, because you want to see what he can do before you make a final decision. No,
right? But I'm starting to wonder if there's a disconnect between front office and what's going on the bench, and that's the part that creates this kind of question mark surrounding the team. Is one, Laughton, the Laughton thing should be is a coaching call because it's at game level. He said we were down a couple and I was trying to roll two lines. Well, Laughton's been one of your best players. He's been one of the best guys for the media in terms of giving the answers that aren't prototypical cliches. And he's been one of the guys who cares the most. So I don't know why you wouldn't find a way to get him on there. He had the opportunity on the shoot on the penalty shot. Obviously. I believe it was in the previous game, but
that's right.
Yeah. But he's been one of your hardest working forwards over the last 4 to 5 game stretch.
3 goals in his last 5 games too.
Right. So like you're down two. Why not put a guy out there that's been hot and that's putting in the effort? I just don't understand that. And especially when it's a game where, again, the love for the city of Toronto is so far into question. For like 2 weeks out, you've got a kid who's from Oakville who wants to play the game, who wants to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and here's 9 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's a coaching call, absolutely. The one that I have to put a question mark around is Anthony Stolarz. Like you've had Joseph Wall, you've had Dennis Hildeby playing relatively good hockey to this point this season, holding down the fort. Why rush Anthony Stolarz back when he had nerve issues and against a team that's going to probably pester him with 35 shots?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me. And that to me, I don't think is a coaching call. I think I'm sure Craig Berube had his say. And when it comes down to it, I'll put money on the fact that him and Brad Treliving had a conversation about it, and I feel like it was Brad who made that final decision.
And it kind of goes back to like before they went on that, massive stretch too, where they fired, Mark Savard, and they were saying that, there was like a little bit of a disconnect with the power play where one side was saying one thing, the other was saying the other, whether changes needed to happen, and they were like kind of feeling it out or getting a feeling out process with everything. It kind of feels like at times they are on the same page, but at times they can't get their story straight. And that to me, like you said, there's that disconnect, and they need to figure it out right now, because I don't think they expected the season to be, completely flipped around as bad as it did. And now I think it's like a little bit of damage control from both the ice level, front office. Everyone's trying to be on the same page, but it's just not working out, and it's showing with their comments right now.
Yeah. I mean, and the biggest standout was 100% what Berube said, and saying that, it's not my decision. I'm the head coach. It's not my decision. So I that to me points in the direction of head office, and I think at that point Brad Treliving's got to have the question asked in his direction as well. In saying that, Scott Laughton did come out, and he again, like I said, very, very in touch with what's going on in that room, and maybe the most in touch with what's going on in that room that we've seen in years. And he came out and he made the comment about, just a lackluster performance. Like the team has played lackluster. There's no consistency. It's not a team that's going to go to the playoffs and make any noise if they do make the playoffs because of the lack of consistency. Your thoughts on one being outspoken like that? We saw Stolarz be outspoken early in the year, and I wonder how much comments like that have driven to that 9 minutes of ice time against a team like Vegas.
I mean, he said it after the game. So the ice time and the correlation with that, to me, it just doesn't quite make sense with that. I get it was like the fact that they closed the gap. Berube wanted to try and get more, goal heavy or goal offense oriented guys on the ice. That's totally fine. But I know we talked about this with Stolarz too. How maybe he probably should have looked at it a little bit in the mirror, how his play wasn't as great when he called out the team. I think the difference here is that Laughton has been playing with that passion and energy that the fans love. So for him to come out with his comments and say it was a lackluster effort as a veteran himself, the second time that a veteran player has called the team out in the span of 2 months or 3 months right now, that to me is a little bit of a cause for concern right now with what's going on in the room. And they even addressed it too, like on the off day with OEL's comments and Matthew's comments, where they got to have more energy and urgency, and Berube with his comments saying that, they need to find a way to fix it, or we need to find a way to fix it because that's not going to cut it anymore. And it's getting so repetitive that this isn't the first time that this has happened where the Maple, and I've wrote about this, it just came out earlier on the Hockey Writers, where they're consistently inconsistent with their effort. And it has been a problem every single year in the Matthews era. I mean, you could probably write off the first year or two or even 3, because they're still young. They're on their ELC levels. They didn't get their first, contract. It's everything after that that really irks me, because in those big games, playoffs, regular season, you name it, there's been something where they have multiple games where they're just flat-footed, and it looks like, and I hate to say that they don't care, because they do. Deep down, I know they do. It's just that with their on-ice performance, it looks like they don't care at all. And when you come out flat-footed, when you're losing back-check battles, when you're not racing to the puck and you're getting pushed off constantly, how you've been in this league for how long, and you got to be constantly reminded that this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. How many times is that message going to sink in where you can't take a day off? And knowing how minuscule mistakes are in the Atlantic Division right now, you can't afford to have a bad game. And the Maple Leafs have had multiple bad games this year where you're looking at, the Detroit Red Wings and Montreal Canadiens. They're proving like they're for real. Tampa Bay's been without Victor Hedman, and now they're without Braden Point, and they're still pushing forward. Many thought the Bruins would take a back seat or take a step back, and Pastrnak is still leading the way. And Connor Geekie is having a phenomenal, Morgan Geekie is having a phenomenal year offensively for them. Buffalo is up in probably going to make the playoffs, or they're in a playoffs position right now. Everyone else is putting forth that effort. Why isn't Toronto right now? Or why are they still struggling to do it 10 years into this era? And I think that's why those comments are warranted. Berube's comments are warranted. But at the same time, it's just like Marner comes back. You know what happened with that whole story and everything like that. And you just come out with an absolute, flat-footed effort, especially in the first 30 minutes. And then even the last 5 minutes of that game. That to me is unacceptable. And they need to have a hard look in the mirror because, there were changes. Players have stepped up or need to step up. But that shouldn't be a deterioration from anything that they do on the ice. To me, that should be more motivating than anything. I don't know why it's still taking this long for them to actually put forth that effort and urgency. And, you knew Vegas had this circled on their calendar. Toronto should have had this circled on their calendar too. And one team wanted it more than the other. It sucks to say that, but this should have been a game where the Maple Leafs wanted it more to prove a point that, okay, you went off, you did your thing, but we want to show to you that we're still better off without you, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do think the reason I asked about the tie-in with Laughton in comments, this isn't the first time this season that he's made comments where he's called out the effort of the organization, and to me it's kind of refreshing because we're so used to, and this ties into the Marner conversation. We're so used to the comments about, we played hard out there. There's certainly things we can change. Blah 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 blah. It's the same kind of comment from your core players, and to see a guy like Laughton come out and make that comment and call on the team that this is a lackluster effort and we're not going to make the playoffs if this is how we continue to play. And you said it. Buffalo right now is holding down a spot that Toronto needs to have.
Yeah.
So though every game against Atlantic Division foes is a must-win game. Every game against an Eastern Conference dance partner is a must-win game.
Margin for error is minimal.
It's so minimal, and at this point in time, the Leafs don't look like a playoff team. And no. I would hate to make the issue being, you don't make the playoffs, you don't have a first-round pick. You make the playoffs, you're likely out in the first round, you still don't have a first-round pick. So right now,
the pattern here. Yep.
Yeah, right now, and I saw the comment on X earlier today that maybe it's time that the Leafs start selling off assets to rebuild what they have and restructure the draft pipeline. If you look at it, get some capital, get some draft picks. I believe they only have 2 picks in the first 3 rounds over the next 2 seasons. So it's. This is a time where you talk about a retooling. I'm not saying go out and shut it down and trade away all your assets and all of a sudden become a rebuild team. But there's a retool that needs to happen. And you can do it on the fly, but you got to stop trading away first round picks for the potential of maybe a second round exit. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where the Scott Laughton comments have become increasingly valuable in that, there's a guy who's in touch with what's going on in the room, and it's not good.
Yeah.
Right.
And even just last week too, we were talking about how acquiring Dougie Hamilton after that win streak, or, their record reflected that, okay, maybe they could use a little bit more help on the back end. right now, I know we said that all the leverage is probably in Dougie Hamilton's quarter, and like any team trying to trade for New Jersey, they have all the leverage. But if I'm Toronto right now, I'm not even sure if I want to do it because
What
of
do you
those lack
trade?
of assets. Exactly. And not only that, too, in hindsight, who would have thought? I mean, I probably still wouldn't have traded Fraser Minton, but how good does he look right now, and how basically the Maple Leafs could use Fraser Minton right now. How disappointing is that to know that he's not a part of their team and he's finding success elsewhere in a third line role, where maybe this year, instead of maybe acquiring, Nick Waugh, you probably could have asked for somebody else in that Mitch Marner sign and trade and give that third line role to Fraser Minton, because he's looking really damn good in a Bruins uniform right now. But also, too, like you mentioned, and I wrote about this too. The saving grace is the Maple Leafs find their way into that top 5 and get a legitimate, impactful blue chip prospect, which probably isn't going to happen. But at the same time, if you start moving on from guys like Max Domi, Matthias Michelli, RFA/UFA guys that you don't have a place next year, get what you can for them. Mid-round picks, second-round picks, third-round picks, those are where you could find money players or impactful players that in maybe 2-3 years down the line, you could probably use them to trade for somebody more impactful right now, or they could have an impact in the lineup right now or in the foreseeable future. So to me, right now, I think that that's probably the best move. I would be happy if they didn't even make any move whatsoever, just to make it a point that, you know what, we're in no way in shape of form to compete right now.
Yeah, I mean the question goes back to who do you have to really trade for those upper end assets as well, right? Like you mentioned a few names there, but none of those guys are going to guarantee you a first round pick.
Yeah.
Right?
I think maybe Nick Robertson if he continues to hold up, but even then I think at best bet you're getting a second.
Yeah. And the thing to consider is like Fraser Minton was one of your guys, one of your top prospects.
Yeah.
He has what, 13 goals, I believe, 15 goals.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be 5th on the Leafs in goal scoring this season so far.
But that gives you another double-digit goal scorer at least.
Yeah. Alex Steves spent all that time with the Marlies. The longest stint I think he had with the Leafs was 6 or 7 games.
Yep.
And he just re-signed with the Boston Bruins, getting a legitimate role on that team as well. Playing some key shorthanded minutes, scoring shorthanded goals. Like this is what I'm saying when, like I say, you're missing the boat on what assets you need to make this run. And the Leafs have done that a number of times and have not guaranteed themselves future success to try and go out and win it now when they've showed no progression in terms of making that next push come playoff time. So something to think about as we go into it. The Dougie Hamilton stuff, like Pierre LeBrun reported that he believes Toronto is on Dougie Hamilton's trade list, that he would be willing to take a trade to the Leafs.
Yeah.
But if you're the Leafs, like, what do you give up for a Dougie Hamilton? Where do you fit him in salary cap wise?
Yeah.
It just none of that makes sense unless you're moving somebody like Calle Yarncroke or somebody like that where you can, and I think it's been the one thing is that it has been noted that Dougie Hamilton wants out. So I think he holds a little bit more, and whoever trades for him holds a little bit more of the cards. But yeah, it just there's too many question marks around that. So I don't see that happening, and I don't see the Leafs going out and getting another defenseman to what? Not score goals, right?
Yeah.
That's their problem right now. They cannot score goals, and they're not defending well. And I'm not sure Dougie Hamilton is the solution here. Right. Anyways, before we get to our last point here, or our next point, our last point, kind of, just a quick word from the folks over at DraftKings Sportsbook. The jaw-dropping moments that make hockey hockey. Experience them all with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. Missouri listeners, listen up. DraftKings Sportsbook is now live in the Show Me State. New customers, this one's for you. Bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN to turn $5 into $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. Kansas, pass-through of per wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer. Copyright NHL 2025. All rights are reserved. Quick comment here from our longtime viewer Gary K. They need to shut down. They need a shutdown. Good outlet, D-men, not Hamilton. They need Muzzin or Tanev. Yeah, it'd be great if you could get both those guys off IR and bring them back in, but unfortunately that's not the case. And I don't think there's a defenseman out there that's available that will fit that mold either right now, for the price that you want to pay.
Anderson, but that was way too heavy of a price for the Leafs.
Yeah, Rasmus Anderson would have been the one piece that you could have gone, but I mean, Vegas, who is not loyal to basically anybody, went out and made that move. So
I will say this: the good thing that he hasn't signed an extension shows that maybe if he does hit the free agency, maybe you could take a run at him then. That's my only thing.
Yeah, 100%. And maybe that's the case. Maybe he wants to come back and play in Canada. Who knows? But anyways, the last thing we want to touch on is obviously Mitch Marner coming back to Toronto. This game was circled on, I'm sure, Mitch's calendar for a long time. It was circled on Toronto's calendar for a long time. It was circled on every Leaf fan's calendar for a very long time. And it was a conversation about 2 weeks in the making of what the Leafs fans should do, how receptive they should be, how they're going to approach Mitch Marner coming back after 9 years and leaving on the terms that he did. And we're going to get into some comments shortly here about what exactly Elliot Friedman had to say about the issue. Mm-hmm. But in saying that, what were your thoughts on the initial reaction when Mitch Marner came onto the ice? There was some boos, there were some claps, there were some signs out there saying, don't choke. There's some signs out there. We saw a Colasar on their way on the ice pull the jersey out of a fan's hands.
Said sell out at that point.
It said sell out and the number 16. So your thoughts on how Leafs Nation, in the building at least, first reacted to Mitch Marner returning to Toronto?
Couple of things. I want to start off with the fan reception. Obviously, when he hits the ice, whenever he touches the puck, boos are going to happen, regardless. I was expecting John Tavares level animosity from New York Islanders fans when he made his return with Mitch Marner, and I was completely surprised that it didn't get to that level. And maybe that just shows a little bit of the respect that Maple Leaf fans did have for Marner, or those that were in attendance at the game too, because you did see a lot of kids with signs and everything like that. I will say that the video tribute was really well done because it showed on and off ice, moments that Mitch Marner had with the team. I'm glad that there wasn't a whole lot of boos for that, and they gave him the respect that he deserved. Although at the same point, everyone is still a little upset that this hometown kid, grew up a Maple Leaf fan, didn't get the job done and faltered in big moments, especially in the playoffs. Then again, everybody else did. I will say it was kind of tame. I thought it would be a lot worse, but I'm glad that, they booed when he was on the ice, but they cheered when, the video timeout happened, which was really great to see. I will say that the fans handled it very well and respectful at that point. In terms of the players, I just feel like I get they wanted to protect him. I get they wanted to say that, he's on our side now. And they made the comments. Eichel with his first intermission, interview. I get what they wanted to do, but it felt like Mitch Marner's a big boy right now. He can handle himself. And I get that, the team wants to come to his defense. But like Eichel walking in front of the camera to try to take that angle off of Mitch Marner to try to block him out. Again, he's a grown adult right now. He could if he couldn't handle the pressure then, he could handle a little bit of like, a little bit of a spotlight right now. Then again, Marner didn't do much in the game anyways. He was typical Mitch Marner in a big moment for himself where he had no points, very little shots whatsoever. And then the whole Keegan Kolesar thing where he ripped the jersey off that said sellout. And again, it's a normal thing. Like, people were throwing snakes at John Tavares. Someone was just holding up a jersey that said sellout. If you're going to take offense to that, then you're just as childish as, Marner is for some of the things that made him leave the team in the first place. And I know we're going to get to one thing that really still kind of ticks me off about how he had this animosity for them. But yeah, to me, the players, I get what they were trying to do, but to me, it was a little bit more childish than everything where just ignore it kind of thing. They didn't need to rip a jersey up. They didn't need to kind of shelter him or whatever, because you know what? That just basically proves our point. Marner was being sheltered as a Maple Leaf on and off the ice by those around him, by those on the team. It's kind of one of those things where, you know what? It is what it is, but at the same time, it could have just been one of those things that the Vegas Golden Knights could have just brushed off and just been like, yeah, whatever. Let our play on the ice do the talking, and it did just that. Yeah,
no, okay, so I'm gonna start by saying, like, I have no issue with the booing. I know on Overdrive, Jamie McLennan said like he wasn't huge on it.
It happens,
and
unless it's a respectful comeback like Patrick Kane in Chicago, Jonathan Toews in Chicago, because they did something for that organization, they have chips to prove it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I do think that I think one of the biggest things right now is that let fans be fans at this point, right? Yeah. Like that's the problem. There's too much. You're questioning a fan base, and this is the problem I have with the whole situation is that what happened was that when he left, he put the blame and he shifted the blame to Leafs Nation, saying that the Leafs would be the ones, or the Leafs fans were the ones who ran him out of town, essentially, with doxing, what have you. Mm-hmm. First of all, I'm still waiting on the proof of the doxing, because you and I sit there and we surf the web. We follow the Leafs, and unfortunately, there's been no confirmation of what was said. In saying that, I do think that as an organization, you're prepared to deal with that kind of stuff when a star player leaves. And let's not mince our words. He's a star player. I'm not sitting here saying that he's a superstar. We've had this conversation. He's not a top 5 player in the league. He's not a top 10 player in the league. I'll give him top 20. That said, when you leave with that kind of animosity between you and a fan base, the expectation is that you're going to come back like that. And to know that one they stood up and they applauded you during your moment, your big return. Video moment, your tribute. Your tribute after 9 seasons of regular season success. And what they did do though is they let you hear it as well. And there was fans in there that, brought their signs and, thanks Mitch for everything. And we applaud you and we appreciate you. And that's great.
Maybe you'll sweat this time.
Yeah, I know.
From that Florida game.
Yeah, that's great. That was fantastic. And then in saying that, like, the protection that his colleagues had over him, like, you never saw anybody do that for John Tavares. He dealt with it. He went to New York and against New York fans and dealt with it. When you're in Toronto and you got a standing O for your tribute video, and you've got guys like Eichel trying to protect you from are we talking about celebrity babies here? That's what it felt like. It felt like
where the sheltering comes back into it. Like it felt like
Jay-Z, it felt like Jay-Z and Beyonce having sky blue and hiding her from the media, not having pictures released. That's what it felt like. And
Mhm.
you are a professional athlete who made a decision. Like, for all the people that don't like LeBron, and I don't like the way that he carries some aspects of
Yep.
himself in the NBA. After he made the decision to go Miami, you know what he did when he came back? He faced the music.
That's what separates him and other athletes compared to Mitch Marner.
Yeah,
They actually face the music and they actually have a statement to say.
if you didn't want to face the music of the fan base that you let down, and say what you will, Leafs fans are passionate people. The true Leaf fans, and we've had this conversation before. Anybody that has doxed a player doesn't deserve to be let into this historical group of Leaf fans. You are a semi fan that decides that they want to, create ridicule and what have you. It doesn't take much to be a hero in Toronto. Doug Gilmour never won a cup. He's a hero. Wendell Clark never won a cup. He's a hero. Matt Sundin never won a cup. He's a hero. Hell, Felix Potvin never won a cup. He's a
Daryl
hero.
Sittler.
Daryl Sittler, Cujo, they've all come in and put forth the best effort possible, and that's what made them heroes in the minds of Leafs Nation.
Mm-hmm.
We're not a tough fan base to impress. We're not a tough fan base. We haven't had a cup since 1967. Like, we're reminded of that on a daily basis. So for you to hide behind Jack Eichel, and I know he didn't do it on purpose, and for Kolazar to come and rip that out of the fans' hands, like, I get it. You're protecting your brother in arms. I get it. But at a certain point, all that's going to do is extend the animosity from a fan base that all
And
they
the
want,
narrative.
and extend the narrative. All this fan base wants is recognition that it wasn't the reason you left. It was not the sole reason you left. And everything comes out. The truth comes out.
Mm-hmm.
There's a song by MGK out there right now where it's talking about all your lies eventually come out. All the truths eventually come out. It's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You've got guys like Elliot Friedman who have insiders in every organization in this league, and they're going to know everything, and they're going to share what they can share without crippling a player's persona, I guess. But
I was just about to before you make your next point, I know we're going to get to the. Actually, I'll let you finish off, and then I'll lead us off for the whole last segment for the reaction to Freeman's post.
yeah, no, I just my thing is, like, I don't understand why it's such a big thing that a fan base booed a player who decided to leave on the terms that he did.
Mm-hmm.
The issue being, he never opened the door to contract negotiations after saying that it was a city that he wanted to play in. We got a quick comment here as well from a viewer here. John Summerhill 8323. Marner's gone. When do the YouTube moneymakers stop talking about him? If he is so bad, people would already have moved on. I guess the fact that the Leafs are out of the playoffs does it. No, actually, John. First of all, we're not big money makers on YouTube, so you can shut that comment right out the window. And we stop talking about it when it stops being a big storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And the big storyline is because
the
nobody
week.
wants it. Nobody allows it to play out.
Yeah.
If people like yourself, John, would allow it to play out, then we wouldn't be talking about it. If they allowed a game for him to kind of face the ridicule after he left a fan base the way he did, then we wouldn't be talking about it. So if that's the case, if you have a big problem with people talking about it, let the storyline play out for one game. It's one game.
And
one game he plays against the Maple Leafs, and you guys still won't let the storyline play out. So thanks for your comment, John. We appreciate you tuning in.
And also, too, like, this has been a talking point 2 weeks when Toronto was in Vegas and Maple Leaf fans were booing Marner in Vegas, too. And these two games were written on the calendar, and you knew at some point everyone else was going to talk about it. Mainstream media, everybody. And everybody is still talking about it 2-3 days after it actually happened. People were still talking about that Vegas game 2-3 days after it happened. So it's not just us. it's everybody still talking about it, and rightfully so, because it is a talking point regardless of how you feel about it.
This is one of our love the picture. This is one of our TikTok viewers, Jordan from Ottawa. Welcome. We appreciate you tuning in. He's
Thanks,
been
Jordan.
over here on TikTok as well, just hammering that like button. So Jordan, thank you for coming out, my friend. Another comment from Gary. Exactly. Once he takes accountability, people will mostly let it go. You know what, Gary, and to John Summerhill as well. It's not even about accountability. It's about the fact that you're not able to. You sat there and blamed the fan base, so there's going to be a difference in reaction to, like, say somebody who, just leaves like signs with another team, doesn't feed you the BS of, hey, we're treated like gods here in Toronto. I love playing here. I grew up playing for. You didn't even listen to an offer. You listened to nothing from the team. You had made up your mind prior to the season starting, and
2 years prior, even like a month and a half, a year and a half prior to.
I was going to say it plays out more in what we're just about to talk to with Elliot Friedman's commentary as well. So with that in mind, Peter, do you want to take it away with Elliot Friedman's breakdown of how this sort of played out?
Yeah, this goes way in depth, and some things that I didn't even know about too, in regards to, like, the whole process, even like after Marner's ELC with everything happening. And it talks about like how basically he was excited of joining the team on that possibility of being a Maple Leaf for life. But then when all the extensions started happening, that's when Marner started to feel a little less slighted, so to speak. And yeah, basically the timeline is basically what we've kind of pieced together as well, where ever since that first negotiation where, Marner held out into camp, things went a little south, but he got his money, and I don't know, everything was just a disaster after disaster after that, because when Marner signed his deal in 2019, usually if you're an athlete, you tend to stay away from social media and that media attention. Marner was being fed it nonstop. He was reading it. He was getting updates from family and everything like that. And everyone was telling him what was being said about it. And that, to me, shows that it just kind of felt like that's where that ego was being not necessarily inflated, but he started to feel a little bit more, trying to bet on himself a little bit more, kind of thing. And ever since, like, playoffs after playoffs, everything started going sour in terms of like the disconnect with the team. And I think the biggest thing, and this is still me, when he was talking about like the ELC, Marner didn't get full bonuses. Obviously, Lou Lamoriello was GM at the time. He wouldn't allow them. But then Austin Matthews got full bonuses on his ELC. And apparently Mitch Marner had a massive grudge about that when looking or signing his new contract. It was actually, and he's saying it was an actual talking point at that point, even being sent down as an 18-year-old instead of playing in the NHL, which I think was still the right move. He was still like undersized. He needed to bulk up and get a little bit more physical. But to me, if you're still harping on an ELC deal or a bonus back then that you didn't get, compared to what you're making 10 times more than what you're making back then in terms of like your actual contract, your bonuses that you're getting and everything like that. If you're worried about something that happened years ago and you can't put that out of the picture or out behind you, that to me says a lot about you as well. And luckily they did sign that agreement, but everything was kind of fractured at that point. Then there's playoff exits. There was the puck over glass in Montreal. There was those kind of games where he was flat-footed, didn't have an impact. Even last year, coughing the puck up the middle of the ice against Florida. And as I mentioned, he's laying into his team, telling him to, you see him like make the comments, yelling at them, but not even a bead of sweat is on his head. So it just kind of feels like with all the playoff failures, everything compounded with the issues, with the waiving of the no trades, to try and get him to move. Even before that happened, Friedman did say that the Leafs gave him or were offering him an 8-year, $96 million extension, but that didn't come to fruition at all. I just really like the breakdown that Friedman had, and I want to get your take too of what really stood out for you, because it kind of felt like everything went wrong, and to me it snowballed years ago, and it kind of felt like nothing was ever going to come back from that. Even if the Maple Leafs tried to salvage something, Mitch Marner already made his decision, and even basically what we had already known, that was the case years ago.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, I'm going to quickly run through the breakdown that Elliot Friedman gave, basically saying that it was a 9-year saga that kind of took place. So to start, it was underlying tensions between 2015 and 2023, draft entry-level contract tensions. Tensions traced back to the beginning of his career, with friction over performance bonuses not being fully paid in his 3-year ELC because he did not play in the NHL at the age of 18. Post 21-23 playoffs, despite high regular season production, recurring playoff failures created a simmering situation, with Marner often wearing the blame for early exits. I would add to that in saying that like the accountability was never there in those moments either. And then the turning point was in 2024 on January 8th. William Nylander signs an 8-year extension, 11.5 AAV. The Leafs planned a future with the core 4 structure, but the pressure on Marner to perform at a similar level increased. So May 2024, the Leafs lose to the Boston Bruins in the first round, Game 7. Marner finishes with 3 points and takes significant criticism for his performance. Offseason of 2024, on July 1st, Marner became eligible for an extension, but reports indicated he did not engage in discussions to stay long-term, and he declined to waive his no-movement clause at the trade deadline. The trade saga kind of came to a fold in 2025. Pre-deadline, Friedman reported that Marner's agent, Darren Ferris, informed the Leafs before the new year that the winger might consider a move to a Western Conference contender. At that time, speculation around the Las Vegas or around the Vegas Golden Knights kind of started to take shape. March 2025, the trade deadline. The Leafs explored trading Marner to the Carolina Hurricanes for Mikko Rantanen, but Marner refused to waive his no-movement clause. At the time, his wife was pregnant. We'll give him a pass on that. Post-2025 playoffs, following another disappointing playoff performance, 13 points in 13 games, the decision was made to break up the core 4. Now, 13 points in 13 games, nothing really in the last few games against Florida. Didn't have great games. And that included the yelling match where he told his team to let's effing go, and without lacking the bead of sweat on his forehead. June 30th, 2025, trade day, hours before free agency, the Leafs traded Marner to the Vegas Golden Knights in a sign-and-trade, receiving forward Nicholas Waugh in return. And on June 30th, Marner signs an 8-year extension worth $96 million, very similar to what the Leafs offered him. The aftermath, Marner opens up about his bittersweet departure, citing the need for a new chapter in his life. January 2026, Marner returns to Toronto with the Golden Knights and to rip the Band-Aid off. So, what I take away from it was that there was animosity that started with his entry-level contract. Yeah. There was the holdout, which Leafs, any fan base really takes personally. I think people still hold a little bit of that against William Nylander as well, because let's not forget, William Nylander also held out at one point in his career, and I think at a certain point it became personal between the organization and Mitch Marner, and that never really lived down. And say what you will, we've seen the videos, we've heard the rumors. Marner's dad plays a huge part in where he is professionally, right? He's been that as a parent, a helicopter parent, where he's kind of hovered over Marner his entire career, and that's fine. That's the relationship they have. That's fine, but at a certain point, it hinders certain aspects of the player. And, you know, it's not just Marner. We go back to Eric Lindros being drafted when his parents played a huge role in the eventual trade that moved him to Philadelphia as well. So this isn't new, right? And at a certain point you get in your head when you start talking, let's say with your parent or your friend or what have you, about how, you know, I didn't get full performance bonuses because I wasn't playing in the NHL at 18, but here's Austin Matthews a year later getting full performance bonuses and being held to a different standard than I was. What's the reason for it? Yada yada yada. And from there, the loyalty just dies, right? In saying that, when he did hold out, he still got the money he wanted. Negotiations still went in his favor to an extent. And he never really came back from that. He was expected to live up to a contract that he wanted, that Dubas gave him, and we can all agree that Dubas made some major mistakes as a first time GM of the Maple Leafs in giving every player basically the contract they wanted and putting them into cap mayhem. Mm-hmm. And when he did that, he forced an expectation on young players to live up to these monster deals and carry the team to success when you hadn't built the team the way it needed to be built for playoff success. You had 4 standout scorers. You had a one-time stud defenseman in Morgan Riley, but you let guys like Zach Hyman walk, who was important to the overall success of this organization. And you put the onus on these 4 guys that really hadn't seen success at the NHL level. That's where things went awry. And that's where a fan base got frustrated. A fan base wanted to see success. A fan base who hasn't seen a cup since 1967 expected incredible things out of a core 4 that was making $40+ million and 50% of the cap. And that never came to fruition. And so I don't blame Marner for being upset with the criticisms he took over the years. I do blame him for the animosity that was held over what would the bonuses have been? Maybe $1 million. And still you ate up all the money that you possibly could have in other aspects of your contract negotiations. So if you missed out on $1 million, it changed your path to success with a team that you claim to have loved growing up watching and wanted to be a part of, and we're treated like gods in this city, and I want to be here forever, and I want to play my entire career with Toronto. And that's where the animosity comes from, Leafs Nation. So to John Summerhill, who I believe made the comment and bolted, that's where the frustration and the animosity comes from, Leafs Nation. Now, in saying that, I think I could speak for Peter and myself when I say that I hope he does find success. He's a great player. He's good for hockey. I hope he goes on to win a gold medal at the Olympics. I would love to see him never win a cup, and I'd be okay with that. And that's the stubbornness of me as a fan. And to be thrown into a generalization of Leafs Nation made me walk, I'm not here for that. You know, I can show you the Marner jerseys I have in the basement. I can show you my kid's Marner jersey. You know, there's a lot of love and support for that kid in the city of Toronto too. And for the select few to, whether they doxed him or not, whether they called out to him when he was walking his dog or not, I'm not here to speculate. I would love to see, like, the internet never dies. So if he was doxed, it's still there somewhere. But I think the world's got bigger problems, so I'm not going to shout out Anonymous to try and figure that out for us. But
I just wanted to add 2 more things too.
Yeah, absolutely.
About this whole thing. Looking back, and this is also what stood out too. I think when, you know, 2 years, like when Austin Matthews signed his 4-year extension, I think he was reassuring that he was going to stay for the long haul and try to, you know, stay with the team and push forward and do what he can to give this team success. Freeman wrote that there were conversations, but Marner wasn't as giving that same reassurance as Matthews did. So right then and there, that's a big, question mark for the team. Okay, well, if you're not going to be a part of this success or try to help out, then that's where the fracture gets a little bit bigger. But even so, like there were rumors and rumblings about, and I proposed that the Maple Leafs try to get Shea Theodore from the Vegas Golden Knights somehow, even if it meant giving up Marner. And Vegas knew instantly right then and there, and I think Marner knew too, and all sides knew it was Vegas or nothing, and that's how Friedman approached this. Discussions with Vegas, who did not want to part with Shea Theodore, Alex Petrangelo's name came up, but the Maple Leafs decided not to pursue him because of the health concerns, rightfully so. Don't believe he was ever asked to consider. What did happen was the Leafs began to believe Vegas was Marner's choice if he didn't stay, though they would never get what they considered a fair offer from the Golden Knights because they would get him. That to me kind of feels like a little bit of, collusion in Vegas's part right there. Just, I don't know. It just kind of felt like there was some, not necessarily, no, not collusion. That's not the word I'm looking for. The tampering a little bit, where they'd be like, no, we're not going to give you one of our best defensemen for one of your top forwards. To me, that doesn't make any sense. Because in hindsight, that would be a good maybe 1-for-1 plus deal where Maple Leafs could get a pick or two out of that as well, or even a prospect. So to me, the fact that at that point it was Vegas or nothing, and Vegas absolutely knew that not giving anything up, knowing that they'll get him anyways, except for Nick Waugh later on, that to me is a little bit suspect right there.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think there was this inside knowledge that he was always going to Vegas, right? Like that was I think where the Leafs got going on this whole idea of collusion, and that's fine, right?
I just want to point out a couple comments from Jay-Z Otto about how many times Toronto could have traded Mitch Marner, and I absolutely agree. There were multiple instances, and I felt like after that Montreal loss, that was the time to do it, but Brandon Shanahan and his plan wanted to run it back nonstop. He wanted to say, hey, let's see this through kind of thing. And the fact that he didn't really want to part ways with him, and that was when that ELC was kicking in, that to me said that he held all the cards and wouldn't let Kyle Dubas. I think Dubas was still GM at the time before he got let go from doing anything whatsoever. So I agree. There were multiple instances. It's just that there was no opportunity to do so, to move on from Mitch Marner, because a lot of factors wanted to keep him in the fold.
Yeah, very fair point. Shanahan had a say in a lot of it. Yeah, and really, I mean, at that point in time, I think one of the biggest things, Jordan, was that they were unsure of who their guy was, right?
Yeah.
And there was a lot of belief that Marner was like. If you go, there's an article on Sportsnet right now by Elliot Friedman where he opens the article by saying it was 2015 NHL draft preparation. There were 4 names at the top of Toronto's board: Noah Hanifin, Mitch Marner, Ivan Provorov, and Dylan Strome. And he talks about how excited Marner's family was to be picked by the Leafs and all that kind of stuff. And there was this hope that Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews would be the duo that got it done. And I think that was why they continued to run it back. I'm not an NHL GM, so I can't sit there and say that I know what was best for this organization. But when you get a player like Marner of his caliber in a possession game now where height and size doesn't matter as much as it once did, outside of playoffs, obviously, it's hard to let that go.
Yeah.
And that's where the Leafs organization, yes, they went wrong in that they could have gotten a huge haul for it. And still they were able to make incredible regular season success while continually coming up short in the playoffs. And the haul, you're right, would have been huge. Yeah. I just think they were afraid of trading the wrong guy. Mm-hmm. And instead that led to animosity between the organization, the player. Slowly, as Friedman says, slowly the smile faded, and the structure that held them in place crumbled. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that it went the way that it did, especially for a guy who claimed to have wanted to be there and play for them. V of Canada, yeah. Longtime viewer as well. Thank you for tuning in. I really hope the league gets rid of no trade clauses. Players really cripple teams with that. They've shortened the contracts. I don't think you're ever going to get rid of no trade clauses because that's something that the players
within their
fight
players'
for.
rights, unfortunately. Yeah,
I think you got to have guys like Pat Quinn used to do it. You had to earn your no trade clause. I don't think Pat Quinn would offer out no trade clauses the way that they did. But it was Kyle Dubas was new to the job. He offered out no trade clause after no trade clause after no movement clause after no movement clause. Stewie, what's going on, buddy? What's going on? Big Detroit fan here in Stu. So you guys got one on us.
Couple on us after this season.
Yes, there would be so many more trades if teams got rid of no trade clause. We would see a lot more movement.
Players want the security, and I totally understand
for family
that.
as well, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
we saw that with Marner.
Factor. Yeah, 100%. So in retrospect, all of that, there was hindsight's 2020. It would have made sense to trade him at a certain point. Unfortunately, it just didn't make sense for the Leafs at that time because, again, you had two stud players. Nylander was still coming into his own. He wasn't a 40-goal scorer at the time. He wasn't a 100-point guy at the time, and there's a lot of worry that you were trading away a guy in Mitch Marner who made other people successful.
Yeah.
So I think that's why the move was never made. And then, of course, when a guy goes on to be as productive as he has been, then you start to question whether he's worth trading at all. And again, during that time, even if it was at the beginning, something crumbled and it was never reconcilable. And that's where the Leafs ended up with Marner going for Nicholas Waugh, and even Marner, like I said, Marner shut down the door, or as Friedman posted, Marner shut the door down like 2 years prior to the contract negotiations. So it was never a conversation of whether he was going to stay at that point. I think that's where you start to lose the team a little bit, and hopefully now that they've had the first game back in Toronto, the Leafs can forget about it. They can get moving on what they need to do to become a playoff team again.
Yep.
But I truly doubt that it's over. I think there's more that's going to come out. I think there's more that's going to be talked about. I think every time that he comes to the city, he did the right gestures. He gave pucks in pregame to kids. He skated over to a kid with a Vegas Marner jersey on, gave him the stick after the game. Like, you did all the right things. You still left a fan base in shambles because you shifted the blame onto them. And that's where the animosity lives now with Leafs Nation. I don't think it'll ever get to the caliber of New York and John Tavares. I think that's a different level. But there's going to be fans that will always hold it close to their heart the way that you handled the situation. And at a certain point, your players have to, your colleagues have to stop protecting you. You got to face the music, and I'm hard pressed to believe that his legacy in Toronto is repairable.
It can't
be at least until his playing days are done, and even then, like, there was conversation about his where he sits on the all-time points in franchise history and raising 16 to the rafters at some point. I don't see it ever happening. I if you raise his number to the rafters, like,
it's the equivalent to doing that with Vince Carter.
Yeah.
It's going to create a lot more controversy and a lot more issues. At least Vince was a trailblazer for Toronto Raptors.
Yeah, he put Canada on the map for the NBA.
Yeah,
that was different with Marner. With Marner, you played to the level that you were expected to play during the regular season, and that was that. So I don't know. I'm on the fence right now about that. I don't think it should ever happen, but.
That's another talking point for a podcast at a later date.
Yeah. When and if it's suggested, we'll bring it up again.
Yeah.
Last comment here by Gary K. I don't think Treliving had enough time to do anything about Marner and his trade with a few weeks after being fired. Yeah, I mean, I I don't know. I don't know
Mhm.
because I don't know like to be a fly on the wall would be ideal.
There are a lot of
Um,
like things that
there,
we would like to know that we just don't.
yeah, there's a ton of what ifs, and that'll ultimately play a part in how everything plays out for the remainder of his career. But Vince shouldn't have been done because of the way he left, and he shouldn't have been done before Lowry. Yeah, but
Yeah.
Lowry's still kind of
Lowry's still
playing,
playing.
and
Yeah.
I Gary, this is one thing I'll disagree with you on. I think Vince should have been done because he changed
Basketball
the
in
road
Canada.
and
Yeah.
the game in Canada. There's a number of players on the Canadian national team now that will tell you that they started playing because they saw Vince play. They made it a goal of theirs to make the NBA because they saw Vince play in Toronto. And I think it's no doubt that Kyle Lowry goes up there after he signs his one-day contract at the end of the season
Yeah.
with the Raptors to become a Raptor, to retire as a Raptor, and what he did for the organization as well.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's all I got here for today. Peter, anything else on the Marner reaction? Anything else you got?
Nah, I think we've beaten that to death today. I think it's over and done with, and we can move on just like everybody else is.
Yeah, I do truly believe that this is not the end.
Yeah.
And to our friend John Summerhill, who comments and runs, I truly believe like you got to let the fans have their moment.
Yeah.
And if that means booing him till the end of the day, that means booing him till the end of the day. If that means booing him every time he comes to town, that's what you get as a professional athlete sometimes. And we do have to take into account mental health as well.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's frail to the point that you can't play in front of the fans that you once did, and the fans that you put the blame on for leaving the city that you so wholeheartedly loved, then maybe it's time to get Toronto flu and not play games in Toronto anymore. And that's where I'll leave it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in this week. We really appreciate it. As always, it's been a pleasure to talk some hockey, talk some Marner with you guys this week on the Sticks and the Six podcast, episode 221. If you haven't already, head over to DraftKings, use code THPN. There are also promo codes in the show description for SeatGeek, $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek if you're looking to make it out to any sort of events. Single tickets for the Blue Jays did come on sale this week as well, so check that out over at SeatGeek. $20 off your first purchase. As well, if you are into BioSteel, jump over to BioSteel, make an order, and use the code in the show description below for 20% off your order over at BioSteel. If you haven't already, check out our friend Alex Hobson, former host of the show as well, who just released his newest single, Small Town Gambler. And otherwise, make sure you check out his hit single that we close out our show every week with, his hit 25. Until next week, guys, that's all for Peter and I here at Sticks and the Six, episode 221.